يدبر الأمر من السماء إلى الأرض ثم يعرج إليه في يوم كان مقداره 1000 سنة مما تعدون.
He governs from the heaven to the earth, and then the record of this governance goes up to him, in a day whose measure is 1,000 years in your reckoning.
9. That is, the events of 1,000 years of your history are a day's work for Allah. He entrusts his scheme of work to the angels of destiny, who submit their report of work before him and receive orders for the scheme of the next day, whose length according to your calculation would be 8,000 years. This thing has also been expressed at 2 other places in the Quran, the study of which can help understand it. The disbelievers of Arabia said, Muhammad, peace be upon him, claimed to be a prophet many years ago. He has warned us again and again that if we did not accept his message and rejected his invitation, we would be seized by Allah's torment. He has been repeating this threat since many years, but the torment has not overtaken us, although we have denied and rejected him clearly over and over again. Had his threats any substance in them, we would have been seized in the torment long ago. In this connection, in Surah Al-Hajj Allah says, these people are demanding of you to hasten the chastisement. Allah will never fail to fulfill his threat, but a day with your Lord is equal to 1,000 years as you reckon. Ayat 47, in Surah Al-Marij, Ayats 1-7, it has been said, an asker has asked for a torment, the torment, which must befall the disbelievers. There is none to avert it. It is from that God who is the owner of the steps of ascent. The angels and the Spirit ascend to his presence in a day whose measure is 50,000 years. So, have patience, O Prophet, a graceful patience. They think it is far off, but we see it near at hand. What is meant to be impressed in these verses is this. Allah's decrees are not passed and enforced in the history of mankind according to the earthly watches and calendars. When a nation is warned that if it adopted such and such an attitude in life, it would meet with such and such an end, the people would be foolish if from this they understood that the predicted consequences would follow their evil acts and deeds immediately. Not to speak of days and months and years, the occurrence of the results may even take centuries.
ذلك عالم الغيب والشهادة العزيز الرحيم.
He knows all that is beyond as well as all that is within a creature's sense perception. He is the most mighty, the most compassionate.
10. That is, for others one thing may be open and known but countless other things are hidden. Whether angels or jinns, prophets or saints, or other pious people, none of them has the knowledge of everything. It is Allah alone who knows everything. He knows all that has passed, all that is present, and all that will happen in the future. 11. The Almighty, the one who is dominant over everything, no power in the universe can hinder him in his design and will obstruct his command from being enforced. Everything is subdued to him and nothing can resist him. 12. That is, he is not tyrannous to his creatures but is gracious and merciful in spite of being overwhelmingly dominant and possessor of all power and authority.
الذي أحسن كل شيء خلقه وبدأ خلق الإنسان من طين.
He who excelled in the creation of all that he created. He originated the creation of man from clay.
13. That is, in this limitless universe, he has created countless numbers of things, but none of them is ugly and ill-shaped. Everything has its own special beauty. Everything is proportionate and symmetrical in its own way. Whatever he has made for a particular purpose, he has given it the most appropriate form and invested it with the most suitable qualities for it. No better and more appropriate structure could be conceived, for example, for the eye and the ear which have been made for seeing and hearing. The air has precisely the same qualities which it should have for the purpose for which it has been made, and the water precisely the same qualities for the purpose for which it has been made. No one can point out any defect or flaw in the design of anything made by God, nor can anyone offer an alteration or modification in it.
ثم جعل نسله من سلالة من ماء مهين.
Then made his progeny from the extract of a mean fluid.
14. That is, in the beginning he created man directly by his own act of creation, and then placed in man himself such a procreative ability that similar men continue being produced by his sperm drop. By one excellent act he gave life and consciousness and intellect to a combination of earthly elements by his creative command so that a wonderful creation like man came into being. By another excellent act he placed in man's own organism such a wonderful machinery for the production of similar more men in the future, whose mode of functioning is highly astonishing and amazing. This is one of those verses of the Quran, which points to the direct creation of the first man. The scientists since the time of Darwin have felt greatly critical of this concept and have rejected it with contempt as unscientific. But the fact is that they cannot get rid of the concept of the direct creation of the first germ, if not of the first man, or of the first species of animals. If creationism is not accepted, then one will have to accept the utterly absurd idea that life originated merely accidentally, whereas even the simplest form of life is found in the single-cell organism is so full of complexities and subtleties that regarding it as the result of an accident would be a million times more unscientific an idea than what the evolutionists think of creationism. And if once it is accepted that the first germ came into being by an act of direct creation, it would be no longer difficult to accept that the first member of every species of animal life was created by the Creator's own act of creation, and then its race started through different forms of procreation. If accepted, this concept would explain away all those riddles and complexities which have remained unsolved in their theory of evolution in spite of all the scientific theorizing by the upholders of Darwinism. For further explanation, see En. 1 of Surah An-Nisa, En. 10 and 146 of Surah Al-Araf, and En. 17 of Surah Al-Hijr.
ثم سواه ونفخ فيه من روحه وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون.
Then he duly proportioned him and breathed into him of his spirit and bestowed upon you ears and eyes and hearts. And yet little thanks do you give.
15. Fashioned him, developed him from a microscopic organism into a full-fledged human being and perfected him with limbs and other organs of the body. 16. Spirit does not merely imply the life because of which a living thing moves, but the essential human characteristic which imbues man with consciousness and thought, discretion and judgment, discernment, and discrimination, by virtue of which he is distinguished from all other earthly creations and becomes possessor of a personality and self and worthy of Allah's vicegerency. Allah has called this spirit his own either because it belongs to him alone, and its being attributed to himself is just like a thing's being attributed to its master, or because the attributes of knowledge, thought, consciousness, will, judgment, discretion, etc., with which man has been characterized are a reflection to the attributes of Allah. They have not arisen from any combination of matter, but from Allah himself. Man has received knowledge from Allah's knowledge, wisdom from Allah's wisdom, and discretion and authority from Allah's authority. He has not received these from a source which is without knowledge, without wisdom and without discretion and authority. For further explanation, see En. 19 of Surah Al-Hijr. 17. This is a fine way of saying something. Before the mention of breathing into him of his spirit, man has been referred to in the third person. He created him, spread his progeny, shaped him, breathed into him his spirit, for till then he was not even worthy of being addressed. Then, when the spirit had been breathed into him, he became worthy of the honor and it was said, He gave you the ears, gave you the eyes, gave you the hearts, for after having been blessed with the spirit, man became worthy of being addressed. The ears and the eyes imply the instruments by which man obtains knowledge. Although the senses of taste and touch and smell are also instruments of obtaining knowledge, hearing and sight are the major and by far the more important senses. Therefore, the Quran has mentioned only these two at different places as the most important gifts. Of God to man. The heart implies the mind which arranges the information obtained through the senses and draws inferences from it, and selects a possible way of action and decides to follow it. 18. That is, the wonderful human spirit with such excellent qualities has not been given to you so that you may live like the animals in the world and plan life for yourselves as an animal would. You were given the eyes so that you may see things within sight and not that you should live like the blind people. You were given the ears so that you may hear things with attention and not that you should live like the deaf people. You were given the heart so that you may understand the reality and adopt the right way in thought and action and not that you should spend all your capabilities for collecting the means of nourishing and sustaining your animality, or that you may devise philosophies and programs of rebellion against your Creator. After having received these invaluable blessings from God, when you adopt polytheism and atheism, when you assume Godhead yourself or become servants of other gods, when you lose yourself in sensual pleasure by serving your lusts, you in fact tell your God, we were not worthy of these blessings, you should have made us a monkey, or a wolf, or an alligator, or a crow, instead of man.
وَقَالُوا أَإِذَا ضَلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ أَإِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ بَلْ هُمْ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِمْ كَافِرُونَ.
They say, shall we be created afresh after we have become lost in the earth? Nay, the fact is that they deny that they will meet their Lord.
19. After answering the disbelievers' objections about the prophethood and Tawheed, now their objection about the hereafter, which is the third basic belief of Islam, is being dealt with. The conjunction waw and in the beginning of the verse connects this paragraph with the foregoing theme, as if the sequence were like this. They say, Muhammad is not Allah's messenger. They say, Allah is not one and the only deity. And they say, we shall not be raised back to life after death. 20. The gap between the preceding and this sentence has been left for the listener to fill. The objection of the disbelievers as cited in the first sentence is so absurd that no need has been felt to refute it. Only its citation was regarded as enough to show its absurdity. For the two parts which make up the objection are both unreasonable. Their saying, when we have become dust, is meaningless for that which is, we, can never become dust. Dust is the destiny of the body after it has become devoid of the, we. The body itself is not the, we. When alive, limbs and other parts of the body may be cut off one by one, but the, we, remains intact. No part of it is cut off with the cut-off limb. And when the, we, has vacated a body, the, we, remains no longer applicable even in its remotest sense although the body still remains intact. That is why a sincere lover goes and buries the body of his beloved, because the beloved is no more in the body. He buries not the beloved but the empty body, which was once the home of his beloved. Thus, the very first premise of the disbeliever's objection is baseless. As for its second part, shall we be recreated? This question containing surprise and denial would not have arisen, had the objectors considered and taken into account the meaning of the, we, and its creation. The present existence of this, we, is nothing more than that a little of coal and iron and lime and some other earthly substances got together from here and there to combine themselves into a body, which became the home of the, we. Then what happens when it dies? When the, we, has left the body, the constituent substances of its abode which had been gathered together from different parts of the earth go back to the same earth. The question is, he who had made this home for the, we, can he not make the same home from the same substances once again and settle the, we, in it? When this was possible before and has in actual fact existed, what can hinder its possibility and its existing as an actual fact once again? These are such things as can be understood by the application of a little of the common sense. But why doesn't man allow his mind to think on these lines? Why does he raise the meaningless objections about the life of hereafter? Leaving out all these details, Allah has answered this question in the second sentence, saying, the fact is that they disbelieve in the meeting with their Lord. That is, the real thing is not this that the recreation of 4. The signs which are found in the continuous experience of human history. Man is something odd and remote in possibility, which they cannot understand, but in fact, what prevents them from understanding this is their desire to live freely and independently in the world and commit any sin, any excess that they please and then escape free from here. They should not be held accountable for anything, nor answerable for any of their misdeeds.
قل يتوفاكم ملك الموت الذي وكل بكم ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون.
Tell them, the angel of death who has been charged with your souls shall gather you, and then you shall be brought back to your Lord.
21. That is, your ego will not mix in the dust, but as soon as its term of action comes to an end, God's angel of death will come and will take it out of the body and seize it completely. No part of it will be allowed to become dust with the body. It will be taken intact into custody and produced before its Lord. Let us consider in some detail the facts which have been presented in this brief verse. Sad face. 1. It says that death does not occur as a matter of course, like the stopping of a watch suddenly when it needs rewinding, but for this purpose Allah has appointed a special angel, who comes to receive the soul precisely in the manner as an official receiver takes something into his custody. From the details which have been mentioned at other places in the Quran, it becomes apparent that the chief angel of death has a whole staff of the angels under him, who perform a variety of duties in connection with causing the death, seizing the soul and taking it into custody. Moreover, their treatment of a guilty soul is different from their treatment of a believing, righteous soul. For details, see Surah An-Nisa, Ayat 97, Surah Al-An'am, Ayat 93, Surah An-Nahl, Ayat 28, Surah Al-Waqiyah, Ayats 83 to 94. 2. It also shows that man does not cease to exist after death, but his soul survives the body. The words of the Quran, "The angel of death shall seize you completely," point out the same reality. For something which does not exist cannot be seized. Seizing something and taking it into custody implies that the seized thing should be in possession of the seizer. 3. It also shows that at the time of death that which is seized is not the biological life of man but his self, his ego, which is connoted by the words like, I, and, we, and, you. Whatever personality this ego may have developed during its life activity in the world, the same is taken out intact as a whole, without affecting any increase or decrease in its characteristics, and the same is made to return to its Lord after death. The same personality will be given a new birth and a new body in the hereafter. The same will be subjected to trial. The same will be called to account, and the same will have to experience rewards or punishments.
ولو ترى إذ المجرمون ناكسوا رؤوسهم عند ربهم ربنا أبصرنا وسمعنا فارجعنا نعمل صالحا إنا موقنون.
Would that you could see the guilty standing before their Lord with their heads downcast, saying to him, Our Lord, we have now seen and heard, so send us back to the world, that we might act righteously. For now we have come to have firm faith.
22. This will be the scene when after returning to its Lord the human, ego, will be standing before him to render an account of its deeds.
ولو شئنا لآتينا كل نفس هداها ولكن حق القول مني لأملأن جهنم من الجنة والناس أجمعين.
They will be told, if we had so willed, we could have bestowed guidance on every person. But the word from me, that I will fill hell with men and jinn altogether, has been fulfilled.
23. That is, had it been our will to give guidance to the people after having made them observe and experience the reality, we would not have brought you here after making you undergo this hard test in the world. We could have given you such guidance even before, but we had a different scheme for you from the very beginning. We wanted to test you by keeping the reality hidden from your eyes and senses in order to see whether you could recognize it by your intellect after perceiving its signs in the universe and in your own selves or not, whether you could take advantage of the help that we provided to you through our prophets and our books to recognize the reality or not, and whether after knowing the reality, you could attain such control over yourself or not that you should free yourselves from the service of your desires and lusts and believe in the reality and mend your ways and attitudes accordingly. You have failed in this test. Now setting the same test once again will be useless. If the second test is set in a condition when you remember everything that you have seen and heard here, it will be no test at all. And if, like before, you are given rebirth in the world, while you do not remember anything and the reality is kept hidden from you, and you are set the test once again as before, the result will not be any different. For further explanation, see Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 210, Surah Al-An'am, Ayat 7-9, 27-28, 158, Surah Yunus, Ayat 19, Surah Al-Mu'minun, Ayats 99-100. 24. The allusion is to what Allah had said, addressing Satan, at the creation of Adam. In Ayat 69-88 of Surah Swad, the whole story of that time has been related. When Satan refused to prostrate himself before Adam and ask for respite till resurrection in order to seduce mankind, Allah had replied, "The truth is this, and the truth only I speak, that I shall fill hell with you and all those who follow you from among mankind." The word ajman, altogether, here does not mean that all jinns and all men will be cast into hell, but it means that the Satans and the men who follow them will be cast into hell altogether.